I'll give a brief update on our CFI Community Award. Then Argonne National Labs will be going through their checked tool. I'm not sure if that's how you guys say it, but and then we'll be moving on to our panel introductions to our other two panelists, and then we'll be moving into an open discussion with the panelists. I have a few questions prepped, but please, everyone in the audience, feel free to speak up. This is specifically for you guys to ask any questions that you may have. And just a quick reminder that the priorities of the working group are coordinating EV infrastructure efforts across North Texas and providing guidance, resources, and collaboration opportunities for local governments and for all of our other members as well. And another reminder that we record these meetings and we post them at our dfwcleancities.org/events page, which I think it's recording.
Yeah, I started it, Chelsea.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jared. Okay, so first, quick update on our Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Community Award. So this one is our $15 million award from the Federal Highway Administration under the CFI Community Program, where we are working to build EV chargers on public property specifically in all of the 16 counties of DFW. So for this one, we're focusing in on filling gaps in the community and ensuring that the whole region has access to EV chargers. We are just in the beginning of the implementation of this. We've had a few slowdowns, a few uncertainties, but we have procured Kimley Horn and Associates to serve as our deployment dream team. They'll be expediting some steps that we're a little less familiar with and helping with coordination with public agencies, vendors, and utilities, things like that. So we're wrapping up our public engagement for this, that is going into our siting analysis. We've been promoting the TxDOT interactive map, which if you guys haven't seen is a map where anyone can leave comments anywhere in the state of Texas related to EV charging stations, so saying where they want charging stations. And this graph here on the left is the amount of comments left in the NCTCOG region. You can see it was super high at the beginning and then tapered off. We started our local outreach efforts in October 2024, and we've seen a bit of an uptick, which is great. We're doing a little bit more of that for the next week or so, and then we'll export those comments again and add all the new ones to this map. And the map on the right is all of those comments, which includes comments from residents of the region, non-residents of the region, and then some of the data, we don't have that location data. But lots of comments so far. If you want to access that, we can send you the link and you can see the comments in your own area. And in addition to this, we've been going to a whole bunch of different outreach events, 13 different ones since October, with this poster that's here on the right, asking people the type of location that they would most want to charge at. So they can vote as many times as they like. We received 845 votes throughout all of this, asking people where they would be comfortable going to charge. So on the left, we're going to be using that data to help inform the types of charging stations that we're going to fund, hopefully, or recommend to TxDOT. And these are all of the public agencies that we've worked with so far that we have received locations from. If your organization is not on this list and you're interested in getting a publicly owned EV charging station through this grant with us, please email us right away. We're trying to wrap up our initial site list. So please email us any ideas you have. If you're on this list and you have new site ideas, please also email us. We can include as many as you'd like at this point. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We can talk about this in more detail. Too far. Okay, so that was my update on CFI Community. Again, please reach out if you have any questions and if you'd like to submit any sites. Now I'm going to turn it over to Luke from Argonne National Laboratory to talk about their checked tool.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share. All right, can I get a thumbs up or something if you can see my slides?
Yes, we can see them. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for that introduction, Jocelyn. My name is Luke. I am an economic, there we go. An economic and environmental analyst at Argonne National Lab. I'm also one of the main developers on our Charging Hub economic and costing tool, or CHECKED, that I'll be introducing today. With me on the call as well is Joanne. She's the PI on this project, and she's been around with it kind of from the very start, so she's a great resource as well for questions and things. Quick overview of what I'll be talking about today. I want to start by just giving kind of an overview of the main purpose of our check tool, what questions it seeks to answer. I don't have a lot of time, so I won't give too much of an introduction to the tool itself, but I'll give a quick overview of the tool at a high level, how to use it, some of the inputs and outputs, and that's about the time that I think I'll have for the presentation, and then hopefully we'll have some time for questions later on. So, thinking first about the main purpose that our check tool is trying to answer. The main question that our check tool is trying to answer is to enable users to estimate the break-even charging price, considering all of the associated costs for an EV charging hub. We often think about this break-even charging price in a dollars per kilowatt hour point of view. The tool is designed really for anyone that is kind of related with EV charging hub ownership or management. Initially, we designed the tool with in mind, thinking about potential users that might be considering installing EV charging hubs in the future, but it also works well for those that are already managing a charging hub and might be thinking about how do I set different price points to start generating revenue from the charging hub. I'll talk about the tool in a little bit more detail over the next couple slides, but the tool is highly customizable to the extent that the user wants to customize inputs, or they can fall back on the defaults that we have built into the tool. And you'll see that there's lots of different comparisons that the tool can do across different scenarios, different configurations to evaluate how that affects that break-even charging price. Bit of a scientific explanation, the tool uses a robust techno-economic analysis framework to estimate the levelized cost of charging by using a discounted cash flow rate of return analysis, which basically gets the price per kilowatt hour that's required for a net present value of 0. I know there was a lot of technical language in there. You'll hear me talk about this levelized cost of charging quite a bit over the next few minutes here. So when you hear me say levelized cost of charging, basically you can just think about it's this break-even charging price. That's what the charging price that the charging hub owner would have to charge in order to break even over the life of the hub. So that's the main thing the tool outputs. But in addition to that, it also does some sensitivity analysis and it helps do some cost comparisons across different configurations. We have been working on some updates to the tool recently, and some of the main new functionality from those updates is number one, identifying some vehicle to grid value propositions, and then also looking at estimating vehicle grid integration's potential in reducing negative grid impact, and that's primarily through including on-site solar and or battery storage. I do want to give a quick overview of the tool itself. Checked is a free, it's user-friendly tool that's based in Microsoft Excel. Like I mentioned before, it's very highly customizable. So pretty much every single input in the tool can be customized if desired, but for all of those inputs, we also have default values that can be used as well when a known value isn't, or when there's a real-world value that isn't known. I don't have time to walk through every step of the tool today, but I do want to give you a quick example of kind of what some of these inputs look like in the tool. So I'll start here with the charger usage table. As you can see, the first few inputs that the user would walk through are identifying things like the power rating, the number of chargers, how many expected charge sessions per day, the charging session power, and so on. For those inputs, those are broken down by level 1, level 2, and DC fast charging in case there are different speeds of chargers within the same charging hub that you want to model. There's some other inputs that are important here, like the charging hub type or venue. So is this more of a public-facing charger, or is it more of a limited access charger that might be at a multi-unit dwelling, an office, a company building, something like that. Some other inputs like the service location, the state, the analysis period, the ownership model, and a bunch of other inputs. So the idea is that the user walks through. Some of these are drop-down menus that you can just kind of click the options. Other ones you type in a number. There's a whole bunch of other inputs that we include as well. I won't walk through all of those, but I do want to highlight some of the big ones. So we do also look at CapEx and OpEx. One of the new functionalities that we have is looking at tax incentives. So whether the hub might be eligible for certain tax credits or other funding opportunities. One of the big ones is that we look at the different utility rates. The tool has over 2,500 built-in real-world rates. If your rate isn't in one of the default table values, it's also customizable as well. And then one of the new features we have from the recent update is including on-site solar and battery storage, solar and or battery storage as well. I don't have time to walk through all of the tool today to give you a demo of how to actually use the tool live, but I do want to point out that in addition to the tool itself, we have a clear, detailed README document that will hopefully help walk users through the tool step by step. So jumping now from some of those inputs to the outputs, I just want to kind of highlight a few of the important outputs here. So like I talked about earlier, after the user goes through, specifies all the inputs for their specific charging hub scenario or configuration, the main output of the tool is this levelized cost of charging. And again, remember that this is that break-even charging price that the owner would have to charge in order to break even over the life of the hub. So this is the main chart on the left here. The first thing I want to point out is that we do break down this break-even charging price by the different charging levels, so level 1, level 2, and DC fast charging. The other thing that I think is kind of helpful sometimes is that we break down the cost, or the total break-even cost, by the different components. So you can see what percentage of that total cost is attributable to things like procurement, things like maintenance and operation, electricity rate, and so on. The tool also outputs other charts like this one on the right, a discounted cash flow figure, as well as sensitivity analysis for all of the different 68 inputs. And I'll give an example of that sensitivity analysis on the next slide. There's a number of other figures that get outputted as well, but I've decided to just focus on the main ones for this presentation. So I want to walk through a couple sample results to just kind of see what a user might get out of the tool. The first thing I want to really emphasize here is that this is not like the end-all be-all charging price that should be applied. The levelized cost of charging results from our tool are highly dependent on the utility rate being used, installation cost, and some other inputs. So it's really important to try to customize as many of those as possible. But these results come from kind of a scenario that's a multi-unit dwelling. So that would be like an apartment building type setting in Illinois that is utility owned. So I want to start here with the figure on the bottom right. This is doing a levelized cost of charging comparison with and without the IRA 30C tax incentive. So this 30C tax incentive is from the Inflation Reduction Act. Basically, I can apply up to a 30% tax credit on all of the capital expenditures. So if you look at the bars here, bars on the left show with the tax incentive, bars on the right show without the tax incentive. So you can see for level 1 and level 2, there's moderate overall cost savings when you include the 30C tax credit. But the biggest cost savings come with DC fast charging. And the main reason for that is that for DC fast charging, a lot bigger proportion of the total costs come from the upfront capital expenditures, which is the proportion for which that 30C tax incentive applies. And so in this case, what we see is that if the charging hub is eligible for the 30C tax incentive, that can result in 11 cents per kilowatt hour cost savings, basically, that in terms of this break-even point, that either could get passed on to the customer or could be kept as profit for the charging hub owner. So to really emphasize these results, let's think for a second here about the without tax incentive results. So thinking about these bars on the right, the 23, 21, and so on. For this specific scenario, the owner of the charging hub would need to set charging prices at these prices in order to break even over the life of the hub. So this is basically what those results are saying, that for level 1, they would need to charge 23 cents per kilowatt hour, for level 2, 21 cents per kilowatt hour, and so on. And then obviously charging prices below this rate would run a loss over the lifetime of the vehicle, and charging prices above this rate would run a profit over the lifetime. The other thing I want to point out quickly on this slide is the sensitivity analysis figure on the left here. So that figure is basically showing how that break-even point of 56 cents per kilowatt hour would change if certain inputs changed. So what we see is that the utilization rate has the biggest impact on that break-even price, basically looking at how often people are using the charging hub or the charging station. But then other variables like the upfront procurement costs, the charger life, and electricity rate also affect that break-even price fairly significantly. The tool does output sensitivity analyses for level 1 and level 2 as well, but I just included DC fast charging for this presentation. So kind of to summarize things, why might somebody want to use Checked? I think the main purpose is that the tool can help users to estimate the charging price that would be associated with loss, break-even, or profit scenarios. It also helps to break down some of the typical EV charging hub costs that are involved with ownership in case the user doesn't necessarily know what those are. And in cases where they don't have a scenario specific or real world value to put in, they can fall back on our default cost that we have coded into the tool. One of the new features that we have is looking at different incentives and other funding opportunities that the charging hub might be eligible for. And just like the charging cost values that we have defaults for, we also have a lot of default charging patterns and utilization rates that the user can fall back on if they don't necessarily know what type of utilization to expect for their specific scenario. And the last thing is that the tool allows for a lot of different comparisons. So looking at how different utility rates or different solar and on-site storage options might affect potential cost savings. The link to the tool is here on the screen. Hopefully we can get it put in the chat as well. Feel free to check that out. I do want to say that this updated version we've been working on is going to be available at the same link here by the end of May. So keep an eye out for that in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to hopefully getting some questions here in a little bit.
Great, that was amazing. Thank you, Luke. Does anyone have any questions for Luke right now while we're all thinking about it? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and introduce our other panel members, and then we'll go into some panel questions. And throughout the panel, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, raise your hand. However you'd like to ask that is great. Okay, so you guys met Luke, he's our first panel member, and then we also have Alexander Farmakis, the Sustainability Manager at the City of Farmers Branch. And here's just some brief info about their chargers. There's a cool picture that he sent right there. They have 13 level 2 chargers, 2 are public, 5 are fleet. No, wait, 13 level 2 public and 5 fleet charging. They're installed through 2021 to 2023. They're at the City Hall, Recreation Center, Justice Center, and Manx Library. And they received some funding from TCEQ Volkswagen Settlement and some from the State Energy Conservation Office. And then our next panel member is Daniel Cherry, the Facilities Management Assistant Director at Dallas County. He also sent over some cool information and a few beautiful pictures. They have 48 level 2 chargers that are a mix of public and private, but mostly public. They've been installed over the last 5 years. They're all throughout Dallas County at county facilities, and they didn't have any funding assistance, but they installed them as part of new construction projects, which we definitely recommend. Happy to hear that. So we have a few questions lined out that I sent over to you guys. If you want to introduce yourselves, and then we can walk through the questions if you'd like.
Sure. Well, I'll start. My name is Daniel Cherry. I'm the Assistant Director of Facilities here for Dallas County. Like Jocelyn said, we've been installing the level 2 EV chargers over the course of the last 5 years. We've done a combination of new construction projects as well as as part of some renovations and just improvements overall to add EV charging to our inventory. We have quite a few EV vehicles within the Dallas County fleet, and then as well as you're seeing an increased number of citizens coming to our facility. So it's quite exciting. It's still new, and there's some challenges that are presented with it, but we're seeing a lot more usage as it becomes more familiar.
Great, thanks. Alex, do you want to say hi to everyone real quick, and then we'll go through the questions?
Yeah, so my name is Alex Farmakis. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the City of Farmers Branch. So we, when I first started, we had 3 EV level 2 EV charging ports that were pretty old. And so just over kind of the course of like 3 years, we removed those and replaced them, and then added additional ones for both public use and for our fleet use, kind of in preparation for EVs in the fleet. And they're all on the same networking platform. So that helps us be kind of consistent about that. And I look forward to any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Okay, we can start with our first question that we've gotten a lot. Just how do you go about setting the price that you're charging the end user? Did you use a tool like Checked or look at other nearby chargers for an example? How did you guys go about picking that price?
So for Dallas County, what we did was ChargePoint is the service that we utilize. I think that's the same thing that Alex uses as well. Within their platform that you use to set rates and just interact with your charger itself, you can look at all the different chargers that they have out there, what the rates are, including any I don't remember the technical term, but like if somebody sits on there too long, so like a parked timer. And we just kind of looked at the average rate that was out there and applied that. We didn't really look at an ROI or anything like that at this time. So what I think that what it came out to be was about 15 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah, we did a very similar thing looking at, other chargers. And then we kind of just did a look at what our average, cost per kilowatt hour was. These chargers do have ongoing network or warranty or maintenance costs. So we factored in a little bit of buffer for that. And so we're at 20 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay, and when you guys looked at examples, was it just within your city or county or the whole state? Where did you get the examples from?
Just mostly the region, like Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And for us, we just did within the county of Dallas. And that can be, and just kind of as a point, that can be all over the place. If you look in southern Dallas, the prices can be 10 cents a kilowatt hour. As you get further up into North Dallas, you can see prices as high as like 30 to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. You'll see just initiation fees of $1 to $5. So just even activating the charger. And then some places even, after 2 to 3 hours, they'll start charging $5 or $10 for every hour. I guess it's a kind of to incentivize you to not be on there all day so that more people can use them.
Okay, and have either of you heard from citizens or anybody using these chargers that they think the price is too high or too low? Any complaints about it, or everyone seems to like it?
I haven't really gotten many complaints. I actually did the other day. One person has emailed me since we started charging, just asking if employees could get a discounted rate. But beyond that, we're still seeing the same usage that we saw before we started charging.
We started charging a fee after all of our chargers have been installed. So we kind of had a little bit of a grace period there as we were troubleshooting just some of the initial challenges, learning a little bit more about EV chargers. So I do think that we had a little bit of a drop in usage. I mean, we were still averaging, I think, around 450 charging sessions per month on the public side. And then people can leave comments on the ChargePoint platform. Most people said it's a pretty fair price, but they mentioned that I guess for their fellow drivers don't overstay at this, at our chargers, because we do have a hourly fee that kicks on. So once a vehicle has been plugged in, as it gets fully charged, and once it's fully charged, there's a 1 hour grace period for that person to move their vehicle. If not, then they start getting charged an hourly fee. And we kind of use that as the incentive to get people to move along and let another user access the charger.
And we have a similar approach as well. We just charge our normal 15 cents until they hit the 4 hour mark. And then after the 4th hour, we'll start charging a similar fee to incentivize them to move out of the space.
Okay, I think that's a question on my next slide, but have y'all, I don't know how in the weeds you guys are with it, but does that work? Do you see people stay that long often, or do people usually leave before it gets to that?
So for us, we would see, Dallas County employs a tremendous amount of people. We don't see it at a lot of our outlying buildings, but in our downtown areas where the concentration concentration of employees are, we would see people just come and park their personal vehicles and charge all day. Now that we've included that incentivization to move out, for the most part, people do. There is a little, there's, I guess you could call it a, hack these days. They'll come out and they'll plug it in and then they'll swipe their card and then they'll charge again. So we see a little bit of that, but by and large, people move their vehicles. And then we also, within our organization, we have our parking attendants. So if they see people kind of violating the policy of, doing the kind of the double swipe or being parked without charging, they'll tag the vehicle with like a parking violation tag. So while there's no real ramification in terms of a physical ticket, there is that, I guess there's a big orange sticker on the side of your driver's window. So, you know not to do it again. So.
Okay, that's great. And Luke, since you guys have developed this tool, I don't know if you'll know this, but have you heard of anyone saying like, hey, I used your tool to set my price and it's working or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have a great answer for that specific one. Maybe Joanne would have a better answer.
I think originally the tool was set to help DOE to understand the charging costs and potentially for public facing to use set up the price. I want to point out that the price actually can be dictated by many other factors that currently the tool are not capturing. The land use, the service you can provide in addition to the charging, that all get into the business case, which the tool focuses more on the equipment cost, the lifetime and utilization. So that's really just give a ballpark of the charging cost that would break even. So the user, whoever uses it, will need to think about what other service. For example, Daniel pointed out that I heard that if you charge like initialization cost per every usage, that's definitely additional revenue that the charging station can use can make. Back to the question on the users who have used this. We recently look at this better. We recently talked to the microgrid vendor that they have been used this to quantify the value proposition for their customers to have a microgrid supporting the public charging station and what that price would be at a kilowatt hour level.
Wow, that's a really cool use case, using it to see all the things you could do that can impact the price. That's great. And I'm sure if nothing else, like just looking at the tool, it's really helpful to see where to even start, like all the things that you have to think about when you're setting the price. Thank you. And now, Alex and Daniel, what do you guys use the revenue, if you're getting any, from these chargers for?
For us, it just goes back into our general fund. So it doesn't come back to my department. So I don't know what the county does with it, but spend it.
Yeah, very similar. Ours goes back into the general fund, but it basically like I said, offsets the electricity costs that are ongoing, and then we purchase the connection and the extended warranties for the chargers. We actually purchased those for a 5-year period. So you can argue, it's kind of paying that back theoretically, but it's all going into the general fund.
Okay, that's great. Does anyone else in the group have any questions for any of our panelists at this point? I don't think I can see
in
the
the chat, Josh. Yeah, we got a few that came in. Karen asked, I guess for Alex and Daniel, how much do y'all charge per hour? I guess this is for that hourly fee once people have been there for a while, what that cost is.
Ours is after that 1 hour grace period. So you would basically have to have your vehicle there till it is fully charged. You have 1 hour, and then after that, it becomes $5 per hour.
Ours is very similar. We put the 4-hour limit on there, and then after 4 hours and 15 minutes, we'll start a $5 an hour charge as well.
So Daniel, y'all's isn't charged to the vehicle. It's just a flat 4 hours and then it starts kicking in. Whereas Alex, y'all's is based on it. Charger can tell when the vehicle's fully charged and then it starts assessing that fee after the hour grace period. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that's correct for me.
Were there any other chats, Jared?
Yeah. Let's see. This is for, I guess, Joanne or Luke. Leslie asked if the tool is able to calculate outcomes based on different user prices.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that one. I'm not quite sure what is meant by different outcomes. The tool is really set up with this user end price as the output. So you can't really use the tool to kind of customize what the price is going to be, and then look at how that's going to affect kind of the cost and revenue. You can kind of do a little bit of a background, like kind of workaround where you can kind of change the analysis period. So just shorten your analysis period by quite a bit and start looking at what okay, so let's say originally you were going to look at maybe a 15-year analysis period. Let's say that gives you a charging price of 35 cents per kilowatt hour. You could start shortening that and say, well, what if I want to basically reach my break-even point after 10 years? What would I have to charge? What price would I have to charge at to reach that after 10 years? And then after 10 years, anything left in the life of the equipment would just be pure profit at that point. Hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Okay. I do have one more slide with a couple more questions that we can go through. Alex, you kind of answered this already with your 450 average charging sessions a month. Daniel, you guys have a significant number of chargers. Do you know about what your utilization is like total, or maybe like per
Yeah,
charger?
so we hover around about twice that. We get about 900 average sessions, give or take a little bit each month.
And that's across all, you said 48 chargers?
Yes, and you know, some of them we see a higher level of usage, such as like our elections building, our North Dallas Government Center, and then downtown our downtown sites have the most usage out of all of them.
Okay, that's good to know. Alex, do you know which of your sites are the most popular?
I believe City Hall is where we have the most charging ports, and we also do free charging for employees. When council was doing the fee structure for that, that's one of the things that they agreed upon. And it does kind of help the city out when we're looking at greenhouse gas inventory. Employee commute is a factor that we have to calculate for. So there is a sustainability incentive for us to have more employees, you know, driving electric or taking public transportation to work. But just that seems to be our higher area of usage. The other part is that we have some townhomes and some multifamily that are pretty close to our property on City Hall. So we do have, and I don't believe any of the multifamily garages have EV charging. So we'll do have some people that live at those utilize our chargers.
This is kind of related to another project that I work on, but do you have any kind of signage or like internal policy or something, like saying that the charging is free for your employees?
I think just general and onboarding, and then most of it has been word of mouth. So I think I've recently had 3 police officers that have purchased EVs in the last month. So once I got one set up, the others, you know, gave me a call pretty quick.
Yeah, free fuel is kind of hard to pass up. That's a good deal. Okay, we went through this question at length, how you disincentivize loitering. But do you have any way to handle maybe like a queue, like a line forming? Like, is there any way you've seen people handle like I'm next, or does the charger have any kind of way to handle that, or is it just kind of just let them figure it out on their own?
We primarily just let them figure it out on their own. The software does have like a reservation program that you can implement, but we haven't turned that on.
We haven't either. I mean, ours is, I mean, if it's full, you know, unfortunately you have to go find the next one. Or, you know, wait a little bit later in the day. I mean, right now, I think that we probably have an adequate amount of chargers for, you know, the people that are using our facilities. In the future, if electrification of vehicles, you know, greatly expands, then we might have to relook at that. But I have a feeling that that's going to be something that is going to come from the community of EV drivers. If they're wanting to charge at a, you know, if they're coming to a city council meeting and there's no opportunity for them to charge, they're probably going to let us know that we need to put some more chargers in.
Okay, yeah, that's something I've been really interested in since I first started here, is how to handle that kind of a situation. I guess it doesn't come up super often quite yet, but maybe in the future. Okay, and then this one is really only for Alex. That since you received funding assistance, did any of that impact your ability to charge a fee or make revenue?
None of the ones that we received funding assistance had that limitation. We only received funding assistance for one of our public chargers, and that was the first one that we put in, first new one that we put in when I got here. And that one didn't have any wording about fees. The other ones that we received grant funding for were actually fleet chargers. So we don't really charge a fee on that, but they can only be utilized by city fleet vehicles.
Okay, interesting. And that was part of the grant, that it can only be fleet vehicles?
Yes, this was for the SEGO grant. It was for fleet charging. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, just a quick tip on our CFI community. There's also no wording in that says you can't make revenue. It says you're allowed to make a reasonable return on investment. So in case that was something you were worried about in working with us on CFI community, you can charge your fee if you'd like. So that was all the questions I have written down. Jared, were there any more in the chat, or did anyone want to ask any?
I had one more in the chat, but Luke, I saw you go off mute. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and maybe add a couple more data points for the first question on the screen here about utilization. We have access to a real world data on charger utilization. Now, this is all across the country. So this is including lots of different markets in terms of how mature the EV ownership market is. So obviously some areas would have much higher ownership in general than maybe the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But we see kind of on the low end, which I think lines up pretty well with the numbers that Alex and Daniel gave. On the low end, about one charge session per day per charger, for a total of like 10 to 15 kilowatt hours delivered. That would be for settings or venues that are more like parking lot at an office building or an educational campus or something like that. Up to the high end. So high end, now we're talking, I should also say the low end there of like one charge session per day and 10 to 15 kilowatt hours is for level 2 chargers. On the high end, if we're looking at DC fast chargers, I don't know if any of the attendees here today would have that situation be relevant, but for DC fast chargers at a retail venue, so this is where we're talking like 100 plus kilowatts charging speed, we see up to maybe 4 charge sessions per day per charger, and sometimes over 100 kilowatt hours of energy dispensed each day.
And that's something that you can edit in the tool, right? Like what your expected utilization to help set the price, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really easy to model different utilization cases also to basically look at how would the overall cost change if I had double the utilization or 50% more utilization.
Okay, great. Interesting. Thank you.
And Wayne had asked in the chat for Alex and Daniel. I think you are both. He asked if you're selling only to the employees or to the public. I think it's to the public and employees, it sounds like. And then the second part of that question is, are there any tax issues or reseller tax issues that you had to address or get an exemption for?
No, not at this time.
Yeah, I think ChargePoint is automatically starting to pull the sales tax out for our fee. So that was handled through the platform.
Okay, that reminds me, Alex, you said you guys got like a 5-year warranty. Daniel, do you guys have any kind of warranty on your chargers? And for both of you, how has that been working out? Have they been coming, doing their job and fixing anything?
So yeah, that's the Assure part of it that's available. It's through ChargePoint, but you can also get it through any authorized vendor as well. I don't know if the price for that changes if you get it through ChargePoint, if you get it through a third party. We recently decided to forego that because we've had, like I said, we've had chargers for the better part of 5 years, and in 5 years we've only had maybe 2 chargers fail, and those were within their original warranty period, so they were covered under that. The one big benefit for that Assure is that anytime there's a problem, you can put in a warranty claim or a request for service through the website, and they'll start working with you on it almost immediately. If it's not something that can be resolved through a power cycle or some other type of reboot, they'll dispatch an appropriate technician to your site to start working on it, and pretty much take it from there. But like I said, this year we've actually kind of decided to take a step back from that and see if that's something we want to continue to do. There is a significant cost implication with it that further causes the increase in cost for the overall return on investment. It can be a good investment, but then at the same time, it's kind of one of those, do I hedge my bet and give myself 5 or 6 or 8 years without it, and then once my equipment starts to get older, then I start to warranty it? Because I don't think, and Alex might be able to speak a little bit better to this, I don't think that there's any kind of clause or anything in there that you have to maintain the Assure warranty for them to warranty it at a later date or anything. So yeah, we've decided for now to forego it and see what happens.
Luke, is a warranty or maintenance, something like that? Can you add that into the tool as part of the price?
Yeah, so maintenance cost is one of the cost components that we have built into the tool. I've seen a lot of numbers in literature, and what I've heard is that real world maintenance costs sometimes don't match up very well with that. The challenge is that there's just not a lot of great real world data yet on maintenance costs for EV charging equipment. But it is absolutely a cost element in the tool that can easily be modeled. In terms of warranties, it's a little bit harder. We don't necessarily have that built in. I think the tool basically assumes that, like Daniel said, you're going to decide to forego the warranty and recognize that you might incur then an annual maintenance cost, just to make sure that the chargers are going to keep working. But you could probably kind of bully the tool into modeling a warranty by basically just figuring out how much your warranty cost is going to be per year, and then kind of entering that as your maintenance cost, assuming that you don't have an additional maintenance cost on top of that warranty fee.
Okay, yeah, smart. Alex, have you guys had to call in anything for the warranty? How's that been?
So we've had, I think, 1 or 2 small things that were under the original warranty that they came out and kind of replaced, no issue. Like one was where the handle port kind of locks into the thing. That spring or something had been broken, or the little clip had been broken, and they came out and fixed that. Before we added the extended warranty, we did have one unit that basically was, right after the parts warranty expired, had an issue with one, and we had to replace basically the whole head of the unit, which was fairly pricey. And so it was just kind of a decision that we made because we don't really, I manage these stations in addition to a lot of other sustainability work. So it's not kind of, I don't have a built-in system necessarily like maybe a fleet department would, or a facilities department would, for like ongoing maintenance and checking on these things. So I kind of did the Assure warranty to lighten my workload and also help with kind of certainty within our budget. Because, if you're planning for $5,000 worth of repairs, then all of a sudden 3 of your units go down, you're going to exceed that. But likewise, you don't want to plan for, they don't like when you plan for $10,000 in a budget and you don't spend a dime of it. So, well, sometimes they do, but just for consistency, that was part of the reason we did it. Just basically ease and consistency. So it made sense for us, maybe for like a larger organization, if you have more staff that can at least put it into kind of a normal operating procedure, like a facility or an asset. I could definitely see that, but just given our city size and kind of workload and different things like that, it was just easier.
And to Alex's point, it is a reasonable cost for this, you know, for the peace of mind. I think it's like $300 per unit annually, I believe is what the assure cost is. So 300 compared to, I think these heads are somewhere around, you know, they're close to $10,000 a piece. When you factor in the cost for labor to come out and actually replace it. So $300, you know, $10,000 buys a lot of warranties, right? So Alex definitely got a good point there.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing, the discussions that we have with our chargers is we don't really have too many plans at this moment to add more, but it is kind of a factor. It's like if you add more, not only do you have the installation cost and the price of the unit, but then you have an ongoing connectivity cost, potential maintenance or warranty cost that you have to establish. And, you know, so it's a conversation that's probably going to look different for every entity.
Yeah, very different approaches, but I mean, do what's best for you. Seems like it's working great for both of you guys, so that's good to hear that at least the times you have had to call in the warranty, there haven't been any problems. That's great. Are there any other questions anyone else has in the chat or wants to speak up? Jared, any questions? Maggie, Carolyn?
In the chat, I don't think I have. I think y'all covered it well. So I guess just to reiterate, y'all haven't seen any issues beyond maintenance of like vandalism or intentional breaking of the chargers or anything like that.
No.
Thankfully, no vandalism, but I guess I should like knock on wood or something for that.
That's good.
And there's no time restrictions, right? So I don't think y'all's are gated in any way. Anyone could just pull up at any time of the day and start charging.
Pretty much.
Yeah, all of ours are, you could technically charge 24 hours a day or, you know, at any time during the day. You know, thankfully they're all at city facilities too. So, you know, if it is at night, that is kind of on the rounds of police. We actually have one, you know, two of our charging ports are in front of the Justice Center. So if that one gets vandalized, that's on them.
If we still have a couple minutes, one question I have for Alex and Daniel is, if you see any issues with folks who park in the EV charging spots without actually plugging in at all. I don't know what your locations are like, but one thing I've seen in especially like high demand areas is that sometimes EV owners will come and park and not plug in at all, which is, I guess, theoretically a way to avoid any sort of basically per hour fee from being there and not being charging. Dan, you mentioned in your case, maybe you could give them a parking violation, but I'm thinking in other cases where maybe there isn't somebody monitoring whether there's somebody using the charging port inappropriately. If you've done anything, if that's an issue, if you've heard of anything of how to avoid EV owners that are parking there without actually plugging in at all.
No, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, right? I mean, unless you have an enforcement tool, kind of is what it is. And, you know, are you going to tow somebody that's parked in an EV spot just because, you know, if your parking garage was full, are you going to tow them, you know?
Yeah, same for ours. If, you know, the enforcement would be very low on a priority list. It would have to be almost like a abandoned vehicle kind of thing. But I will say, you know, I guess a lot of like the best practices for the incentivizing EV charging is to have it like close to the door and this and that. We kind of did the opposite just for the sheer fact of location of electrical power. So all of our chargers, or not all, a fair portion of our chargers for the buildings that they service are actually kind of a little bit further away. So you're less likely to have the person that's just going to nab the spot and sit there that's not in an EV just because they want the convenience. So in a way, we maybe kind of veered from the best practice just to kind of save money on location, so we didn't have to trench or run wire that far. But it also kind of works for that reason too, that you just don't have someone basically like, well, I can park here. It's almost as close as a handicap spot, and I'm not going to get a ticket while I run into the rec center and work out. It makes it, I guess, maybe a little bit more inconvenient for them.
That's a
Probably
good
shouldn't
point.
have admitted that.
No, I mean, I think that's probably something that probably more like private charging stations at like retail or, you know, malls, big places like that will probably have to consider that a lot more than you guys do. But I mean, that's a good way to avoid it. Just don't make them the best spot, I guess.
Well, part of that, though, with the being close proximity to the building, one is obviously the, you know, to incentivize individuals to buy EV vehicles. But the other part of that is when you're talking about new constructions or renovations that are becoming or working at LEED certification, and I'm sure probably in the near future, you know, green building codes, they all require those chargers to be set basically as close to the building without affecting ADA parking spots. So that's kind of a big one as you're kind of moving forward through those things to think about, is that it's going to be you know, that comes in a factor when you're not factoring in LEED or green building codes. You're able to do that because we kind of did the same thing at some of our locations for those exact reasons. It's closer, you know, it's closer to the electrical panel. But in all our new construction buildings, they are all as close to the building, you know, they're the next closest parking spots.
Do either of you guys have any codes or ordinances or policies that govern charging that you had to think about while you're making these?
Dallas County on its own doesn't, but obviously with green building code or when following LEED for our new construction buildings, that those kind of drove our decision factors.
Yeah, just the accessibility standards for I guess the state kind of stuff. That was the consideration that we had.
Okay, cool. Any other questions or comments for the last couple minutes here?
I think from my end, you know, if I'm, you know, make a comment, I'm not sure how familiar everybody is that's on this call, you know, realizing that, you know, when you start implementing chargers, you are pretty much married to whomever you pick. If you pick ChargePoint, you're stuck with them. You can't change it, make a ChargePoint you can't go to a different, I guess, business owner. So like, you can't go, like if you shopped at, say that it was Tom Thumb, right? You can't change it to Kroger. It doesn't work like that. You're stuck with ChargePoint for the entire time you have that charger. And you know, you have to make a decision. Am I going to have multiple charging vendors, right? Am I going to have ChargePoint, EVgo, and something else? And that means I have to have multiple interfaces, or, you know, multiple user interfaces. I have to have, you know, offer my customers multiple ways to interact with these devices, because it's all, you know, none of it's just bring your credit card and swipe. Pretty much all of it, you have to have an account through your smartphone, or you can do like an RFID card with ChargePoint. I'm sure it's the same as the others, but you're stuck with them. And given the cost that these chargers are, you're not going to convince anybody to spend $100,000 on new charge heads because you got mad at the vendor because they're not being nice to you or they don't give you the right service, right? And then the other part of this that we didn't really realize, right? You pay that annual service fee, but they also take out a percentage of the income that you make off these chargers. So you have to factor that in as well. And I don't know, Luke, if your tool factors that in, but like ChargePoint, I think it's 5 or 10% of whatever money is brought in, ChargePoint keeps as a service charge. And it's not, they don't add that on top of your charge. It's included within your charge. So with me, I charge 15 cents a kilowatt hour. They're keeping 10% of that 15 cents every 15 cents that I make. And that's something that, you know, it's probably in the fine print, but when you're building a building and somebody else enters into this for you, you know, that's something that you find out after the fact. So just things to keep in mind.
Yeah, thank you, Eden. I didn't think about that.
I'll add a little bit to that, especially with any charges installed through NEVI funding. So our CFI Community Board, as of the NEVI standards right now, that are subject to change and review, charges installed through that funding are required to be OCPP compliant, OCCP compliant, so they should be able to change charging station vendor. But to your point, Daniel, some charging manufacturers say they are compliant with that, but then when you actually ask them to change the vendor, it's not that easy. So on paper, some charging station manufacturers may be easier to switch if you want to switch the actual software on the charger. Some may be easier to do that than others. But it's really kind of dependent on a case-by-case basis on how compliant they are with those protocols.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. This has actually been really fun. It's been super great. I appreciate everyone coming. I appreciate all of our panelists so much. And again, if anybody's interested in our CFI community public property chargers, please send us an email. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you all.